Well, welcome to Command Attention. Now, when it comes to being a great marketer, you have to learn how to command attention. And that means being able to write good headlines and tell great stories. Now, headline writing and storytelling are both skills that can be learned and honed throughout your career, no matter what you do. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover two things. How to write a simple and effective professional headline you can use at a cocktail party, trade shows, LinkedIn, or literally anywhere. And the second thing we're going to learn is the 5 keys to writing a good story and how to apply them to your business. So let's jump in. Why is a strong headline so important? Well, first, it grabs people's attention. A good headline is an interrupter. It's like, boom. It's easy to understand. You don't want a headline that is not easy to understand. And it also needs to be memorable. If it's easy to understand, then it's also easy to remember. And when you accomplish that, then it becomes easily shared. And that's super important, especially if you want referral business, because if you don't tell people what you do in simple terms that grabs their attention, that's easy to understand and is memorable and is easily shared, you're not going to get any referral business. And that's why it's so important that it's easy to repeat. And finally, it's got to hit all the bases. It's got to tell people what you do, how you do it, and for whom. That's a pretty tall order to put in a single sentence, but I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. The second thing is, why is a good story so important? And it may seem obvious, but it's exactly the same reasons. It grabs their attention. It's easy to understand. It's memorable. It's easily shared. It's easy to repeat. It tells people what you do, how you do it, and for whom. But there's a couple more really important things it does. It puts them in the story. They have to see themselves in your story. Otherwise, you're just telling an interesting story. If you can put your prospect in your story, it's going to completely revolutionize the impact that you have as you're communicating. And as you do that, you want to give them the same aha moment that you had, like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this was possible. And now I see that it is. So you want to create that aha moment. So let's get started. I want to help you create a killer headline. And you're going to be blown away at actually how simple this is conceptually, but how challenging it is to actually get it right. There's a great saying, and it says, I would have made it shorter if I had more time. And that's what you're going to find here. In creating a killer headline, it's really about making it short. And so this is a format that will help get your head in the right zone because it hits all the bases. And so I help blank to blank by blank. And your job, simply fill in the blanks. So I'm going to walk you through an example of having done this for myself and how would I grab your attention. So I say, I help business owners to dominate their industry by marketing on LinkedIn, right? So I want you to go through that same thing. I help blank to blank by blank and create your killer headline. And the format is really this. I help person to generate an outcome by my vehicle. So brainstorm ideas. You understand who you're going after now. That's the person. What is the outcome you're going to provide? We've just created the value transformation. You're going to create an outcome for them. And what's your vehicle? What's your unique mechanism? What's your unique selling proposition? How do you do that? Okay? So it's time to do the work. I want you to put the video on pause at this point because we're going to come back and we're going to work on the story. But start with your headline because it's going to be the centerpiece of your story. Well, welcome back. So it's time to create a great story, and I'm going to teach you a process we call the hero's journey story. And there are 5 keys to great story. There's always a character. And when you think about this, like think about maybe one of your favorite movies. I promise you it follows this pattern. You'll never look at a movie again the same way without understanding, like, oh, this is the process every great story goes through. So there's always a character in the story. And that character is on a quest. They have some sort of problem. And they run into a guide who helps them and gives them a plan. And if they'll just execute that plan, then they're going to have an outcome. If they execute it well, their outcome's going to be fantastic. And if they execute poorly, it's going to be a disaster. You have to have both of those in order to create suspense in a great story. So how do we do this for your business? Well, let's just map each one of these 5 keys. So first is the character. So this is your buyer persona. They become the hero of the story. And so often when people are telling story, they do this the wrong way. They want to make themselves the hero of the story. And so this is super important. You are not the hero of the story. Your buyer is the hero of the story. Now your buyer has a problem. What's the main problem that they are facing? Now we've just gone through the value transformation, so you can begin to see how these things apply. How does it make them feel? And why is it just plain wrong for them to have to deal with it? So let me give you a little context to this. I'll use myself. So I had a problem. I needed more prospects. That made me feel horrible. And it was just plain wrong because I know what I'm doing and people should just come to me, right? How often do we build something and go, they should just come, this thing will sell itself? But it's just not true. So in their problem, there are 3 parts to a character's problem. The first part is the external problem. And that is what's going on externally. I have a problem. I need more prospects. They also have an internal problem. That's where our feelings come through. Like if I don't get this solved, I'm going to have to go get a job. Or if I don't get this solved, I can't feed my family. That's the internal problem. And then there's also a philosophical problem. And the philosophical problem answers the question, why is it just plain wrong for me to have to deal with this? Like it's just not right. So go through each parts of that when you're figuring out what problem do they have. Think of the external, think of the internal, think of the philosophical. And then they need a guide. Now that guide is you. So what story can you share that shows 2 things? Empathy and authority. You have to be able to empathize with your buyer. Like, man, I know where you're at. I've dealt with that before. I've had clients that have dealt with that before. This is how they feel. I know how you feel. I felt the same way, and this is what I found. I love using feel, felt, found when I'm using empathy. And then you've got to tap into your authority. What makes you the authority on this? So your authority is going to come from, we've helped these people. I've done this for so many years. I learned these things. I've given other people results that you want. That is what's going to create your authority. And then finally, what is your plan? Your character has to have a plan. What are the 3 to 5 steps your character must take to solve their problem? So it's not 10 steps. Like that's going to be too complicated. Remember, I said your story has to be simple. So you've got to break down what you do. It may be 20 things that you have to go through, but I need you to break it down to the 3 to 5. Otherwise, you can't solve 100 problems, right? When you think about any good movie, it's not like the main character has a gazillion problems. He's got one main problem. He's got all kinds of other stuff going on in his life, but he's only got one problem. And same with the plan. Like when the guide shows up, the guide says to Luke Skywalker, become a Jedi and change the world, right? It's like 2 steps. It's simple, right? So what are the 3 to 5 steps that they're going to have to take? And then what is that very first step that they need to take with you? So that's your plan. And then your story needs to generate an outcome. So what does success for your character look like? So at the end of the movie in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker shoots and he hits the Death Star and it blows up, and in one shot, he saves the world from evil. He saves himself and he saves his family, right? So that's what success looks like. He hit the main problem. He hit the internal problems. He understands who he is. He hit the philosophical problems like good triumphed over evil. Those are all fantastic outcomes. But also, what does failure look like? If he hadn't have done that, the dark side would have won, right? So that's what creates the tension. You got to have some tension in your story. Those are the 5 parts. When you put these pieces together, you're going to have a great story. So here's what we've covered. We've covered that you've created a simple and effective professional headline you can use at a cocktail party, trade show, or anywhere. And you created a hero's journey, secret to telling a story about your business. Okay? You haven't done that yet. That's the exercise that we're going to do right now. It's time for you to do the work. Fill out the hero's journey worksheet. And I will see you on the next video.